Back now with an in-depth conversation that's all new for you here on the news at 7. America and its citizens are being decimated by fentanyl. Over a one-year period from October of 2021 to 2022, 101,751 Americans died from drug overdoses. The vast majority, 80% of those, were related to fentanyl. For one local member of Congress, the conversation is personal. Ian Trone, nephew of Maryland Representative David Trone, died in 2016 from a fentanyl-related overdose. He was only 24 years old. Congressman David Trone, Democrat of Maryland, is with us. He has been a leader in Congress on issues dealing with mental health and substance abuse. Congressman, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. You've introduced a bipartisan piece of legislation with Republican Don Bacon of Nebraska that would, number one, require Customs and Border Patrol to update its manuals every 3 years to identify ways to help prevent drug and human smuggling. And number two, to require the CBP commissioner to report any changes made to those manuals to Congress. So my first question is, can you please draw a straight line for me between updating manuals and cutting the flow of fentanyl coming across the border?
Yeah, there's actually two bills we put together just recently. And the first bill you talked about was trying to get the CBP, Customs Border Patrol, into the most up-to-date methods to stop fentanyl and transportation across the border. We get 200,000 cars every week. I did that with Congressman Michael Guest, actually out of Mississippi. And then the second bill is really modernizing the opioid treatment thing. And that I did with Don Bacon, Republican Don Bacon. And that's a way we can get methadone easier and with a 28-day supply versus forcing the person in recovery to come to the methadone treatment center every single day, 6 days a week, which averages almost 40 minutes a trip across the country. So one thing is preventative, we just did, and the second thing is working on helping people more successfully deal with methadone.
Got it. So on the manuals issue, there seems to be the implication there that just not enough is happening at the border with Customs and Border Patrol that's allowing all of this fentanyl to come across from Mexico. So what are you seeing? What is your experience showing you about what's not happening at these border crossings?
Yeah, what's not happening is we have absolutely zero cooperation from the Mexican government. And you saw President Obrador of Mexico just last week said that this is not a Mexican problem. Mexico doesn't produce the fentanyl, which is a lie. They produce virtually 100% of the fentanyl through two major cartels, and it's all coming over in passenger vehicles through the border, not by people, but by passenger vehicles, largely driven by Americans, paid by the two major cartels to bring it across. So the Customs Border Patrol is handicapped greatly, as is the DEA handicapped greatly by the lack of Mexican cooperation, which virtually is zero.
You know, there was an opinion piece in the Post yesterday about the fentanyl crisis that addressed this. The writer said this, quote, "I didn't expect to see the presidential administrations of both men," referring to President Biden and the president of Mexico, "wither into neglect and capitulation on this issue with such catastrophic consequences." Congressman, you know President Biden. You've hosted him at your house. Should his administration be doing more to combat this, or are we putting this all on Mexico?
No, his administration has really done more than anybody has ever done before on the stopping the demand side with education, with treatment, rehabilitation. So the president has put all that focus on how we deal with folks in America to help them get through this addiction crisis, which has taken over 1 million lives, now 100 and some thousand each year. 80% of those are fentanyl. So the president's all in there, but he is stymied, like all of us are, with no cooperation from China on the precursors, and then nothing from President Obrador in Mexico.
All right, let's talk about, finally, the State Department. You sent a letter to them, a bipartisan letter, asking them to intervene and set up a travel advisory to Mexico. Does that affect just, it's spring break season right now. So there's a lot of people that are going to be going down to Mexico. College students, other folks just here within the next 3-4 weeks or so. So is a travel advisory necessary in the sense that is it going to protect, just ma and pa or the retirees that are going down there to not look to get in any trouble? Or does this only affect one small section of Americans that you're concerned about going down there?
No, this really is really important. I mean, because this is life and death. And we got 12 million folks or tourists every year in Mexico, 12 million. And there's pharmacies on every corner. It's restaurant, it's bar, it's a pharmacy. Then repeat over and over. And they're selling these drugs over the counter: Percocet, Valium, Adderall, Oxycontin, oxycodone. And they don't have what you think is in those drugs. What's in all of those drugs, roughly 70%. When tested, 70% was fentanyl or methadone. So the fentanyl, if it's over 2.0 milligrams, you're dead. So one pill of Valium that came from the cartel that you buy in Mexico at that pharmacy, one pill of Adderall that you buy in Mexico at that pharmacy during spring break, you are dead.
Right.
And you really got to remember that simply one pack of Sweet and Low, 500 deaths. That's how many that can do if that was fentanyl.
Yeah, I just read a story about the fentanyl bust that could have affected 20% of the world's population had it been ingested. This is an important issue. I'm sure this is the first of many conversations we'll have about it because we've got to start bringing this curve down. Congressman David Trone, Democrat of Maryland, thank you so much for your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you.